Hey there, it's Joe, son of Disruptive. How's your day? Mine's well. So Queensryche is the topic of this video. Now, I think Queensryche is a much overlooked and underrated band because they were undoubtedly one of the godfathers of progressive metal any way you look at it. They've been one of my favorite bands since I was, in middle school, I think. So they've been big in my life. This is a video where I'm going to count down their albums from worst to first. First, obviously, being the best. And why? Because it's fun to do and it rhymes. Worst first rhymes. That's why. And I'm doing just the studio LPs, so the very first EP will not be on this list. No live albums are on this list, and also I'm not including their Take Cover album, which was an album of just covers, just their 15 studio records. And yeah, let's start at 15. 15 is going to be Queensryche, the self-titled Queensryche record of 2013. Why is this so low? I don't like the sound of the record, although I do think there are some good songs on here. There's some quality songwriting, but there's something to it that never connected with me on an emotional level. And I will clearly admit that I have always been on the Jeff Tate side of this whole thing. And that is probably clouding my vision a little bit on the Todd La Torre records. Don't get me wrong, Todd La Torre is a very good vocalist. He has made some killer music with the band, and he has done a great job since taking over. So there's no dissing Todd La Torre whatsoever. I think he's come in and done a very good job in a difficult situation. But it's been tough for me to fully embrace that, and I admit that. So that's my fault. Coming in at 14, probably the record most people have the worst. That is also 2013, Frequency Unknown. This is just a Jeff Tate solo record. It was rushed. It was put together fast. The production isn't the best. The mixing is questionable. With all that being said, there are some songs that I really enjoy on here. Hand of God, Running Backwards. Some things that I do enjoy and find interesting. And Jeff Tate's voice here, while not at top form, has some emotion in it that connects with me. And that's why that is where it is. Coming up number 13, Operation Mindcrime. 2. Yeah. Yes, 2. Don't worry. When Operation Mindcrime 2 first came out, I enjoyed the record. I thought it was pretty good. In hindsight, it hasn't aged that well, and there's nothing I recall necessarily from it. There's a few songs, but nothing comes to mind right away. And how do you possibly follow up and have a sequel to that record? A record like the original? You can't. Number 12 is, this one's going to be low for quite a few people because I know a lot of people like this record, and I reviewed it as well and gave it a positive review. That is The Verdict. Again, while I'm listening to it, it sounds good. It's produced very well. There are some good songs on it. Musically, it is very well put together. There's some very good playing on this. But it suffers from the same as their first record with Todd La Torre, in my mind, and what I just said about Operation Mindcrime 2, nothing comes top of mind when I think of that record. There's nothing there that I find myself humming along to a melody line out of the blue. And I've listened to it a bunch. I really wanted to like this record, and I did, but it's not something that I go back to. And it's weird because it's good. Why do I never go back to it? Why do I not feel the urge to go back to it? Not sure, but there's where it's at. Next up, American Soldier. This is one of those records I have to be in the mood for. When I'm in the mood for it, it's actually pretty good. It is very well put together. It fits very nicely as an entire concept. It flows together nicely. There are some really interesting bits. I love some of the saxophone playing just in parts of this. Gives it kind of this eerie atmosphere that I do think is cool. But towards the end, there are some songs that lose me, and that's why it is as low as it is. And if I'm not in the mood for this record, I find it a bit boring. There you go. Next is my favorite record from the Todd La Torre era, Condition Human. I thought there was some good stuff on this record. I really did. I enjoyed this one quite a lot when it came out. Condition Human, the song, is a great song, although there are parts of it that are a little eerily reminiscent of something that Jeff Tate would have sung, in my mind. Of course you're going to have that, I understand, but it's a little too close at points, but there's some really good material on here. I-9, I love that, just that bass, the groove going through there. So, some very cool tracks here. Brings us to Tribe. Tribe is a record that I thought was really good, and I still think is pretty good. Why is it lower than some of these other ones that I would have thought it would have been higher than? I find myself going back to the ones that are listed above it more. Like, Tribe has a handful of songs that I really, really love, but then there are, a few that I always skip that don't really do anything for me. And that's why I love the record, don't get me wrong. So, Jeff's voice sounds really good on this record. And it's a record I really enjoy. But like I said, there's a few tunes that I do skip. That's why it's low. Next up is Q2K. That has taken a lot of flack. I think undeservedly. I think you go back now and you listen to it, and I think it has stood the test of time very well. Falling Down, Breakdown, I love. Liquid Sky is very cool. There's some tracks on here that are really interesting songs, and I think was unfairly dissed. The first one without Chris DeGarmo, I understand the sound did change, but not as much as people think. Because if you go back and listen to Here in the Now Frontier, that was Chris DeGarmo's baby, a lot of that, and most of the people who cry for the day Chris DeGarmo left did not like that record, did not like Here in the Now Frontier. But now it's revisionist history, and it's like, oh, he's the reason why it went downhill. Not necessarily. The band changed. And that brings me to, this one's a little controversial, I suppose, The Warning. There's some killer tracks on The Warning. Why is it this low? I feel like the band is not fully realized here. They're still really going for the Iron Maiden, Judas Priest thing, and they really haven't got this other thing going through it. They haven't really added the Pink Floyd and the Yes and the Genesis. They haven't added that aspect to it quite yet. So it's raw and it's very good. Jeff's voice is unreal here. but it's as low as it is because of those factors. Next up is Here in the Now Frontier. Definitely more stripped back sound. They definitely tried to lay off some of the things they were doing earlier. We're talking about the 90s now. We're talking about that era, and they're trying to find their place in the music business. And, well, the place was not very good because almost every band got crushed at this point that had anything to do with the 80s. It's unfortunate because this has some really good tracks. I'm completely blanking, but trust me, it has some great tracks that I really, really highly enjoy. So, there. Next up is, this one people may just click off when they hear that. Dedicated to chaos. I can't even say it. Consider it a guilty pleasure for me, I suppose. Although I don't feel guilty at all because I really enjoy that record. I always have from the minute it came out. There are some tracks here that I do skip. Got It Bad, Get Started. I don't listen to them. I don't like those tracks at all. But the expanded version gives you so much different sides of the band. It gives you so many different, it's all over the place. And I love that about it. There are some heavier tracks, there are just some fun tracks, there are some really unique, odd things they throw in there. I like this record quite a bit. And it's one of those records, if you put your headphones on, you are going to pick up on things for years that you didn't catch before. It's just one of those records that there's so much information going on kind of underneath the mix, so many different sounds, things you really didn't notice that most people overlooked when this record came out because it was much maligned, and it still is to this day, unfairly in my opinion, but hey, whatever. Next up is Empire. Yes, it had a lot of radio tracks, and yes, a lot of those were a bit played out for me, but all in all, it's a great record. What can you say? Phenomenal. Here's where it got really difficult for me. I'm going to switch it up right now just because I have to. Next up is Promised Land. Originally, Promised Land was in the number 2 spot because I love Promised Land. I love the atmosphere of this record. I love this dark place it puts you in and keeps you in this dark room for the entire record. I love the soundscapiness of this record. So many elements that are so cool when it comes to this record. But Operation Mindcrime, which is number 2 for me. Operation Mindcrime is a little played out for me because I've listened to it so many times. I've seen it live so many times. But yet, I just put it on yesterday, and immediately you're put in this place, and it is genius. All the accolades it gets for being one of the best concept records deserves those accolades. It is a masterpiece. Truly is. The story, the music, the sonic landscape, everything about that record is perfection. Great record. Brings me to number 1, Rage for Order. Rage for Order is the perfect record. That is probably my favorite record of all time by any band. Something about that record, the sound, the feel, it's got this kind of more gothic type thing going on here than most Queensryche. There's some keyboards in here that they didn't incorporate previous to it. I just love the direction they took here. Very experimental, very interesting. Just pure art is Rage for Order. And there you have it, Queensryche, one of my favorite bands. If Chris DeGarmo had stayed in the band, then they would have continued on that streak from The Warning going through Promised Land. Those 5 records alone, I think they deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just for those 5 records alone. You know, they won't be. I understand that because of what has come afterwards, but if they would have kept on that path, they would be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they are a truly influential band that created a sound and created a style that many have emulated for years and years and years. So there you have it, Queensryche. Yeah. First to worst, or worst to first, is what this one is. But there you go. That's my list. What's yours? Do you like Queensryche? Do you not? If not, why? You should. Great band, man. You're missing out. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. See ya.